of this Bhishmadev's pastime, and I think it's very exciting. Generally speaking, any script would be exciting if there's some fighting and there must be some action. Otherwise, if you just speak Bhagavatam all the way, the audience will go to sleep. That is a fact. But Bhishmadev's story is a really nice story because it has elements of all of this actually. I think the purpose for a few minutes at least today is to try and share with you some thoughts about Bhishmadev because he's such a great personality. And if we want to do something to justify our understanding of presenting him, then it becomes very important that we should actually be able to practically understand his mood, understand what he means to us in terms of devotional service, and also try to appreciate the complexities that he faced in his own life actually. Whenever we want to present a character from a drama, even from the material point of view, we study the character very well. And we try to understand what was the inspiration behind the character, the challenges the character faced and all that. So how much more we should study if we are talking about someone as exalted as Bhishmadev. So I had some points here that I had saved, when I do preaching in NUS and Artha Forum and the other places. So I thought it's good that we have a PowerPoint because then the points are there. And then I would like to share this PowerPoint with all of you so that you can keep them in mind also because they give you a very distilled picture of Bhishmadev actually. So the important thing for us to remember is Bhishmadev is glorified in Bhagavatam so much. And the reason for such a great devotee's glorification is given very nicely by Lord Shiva to Mother Parvati. In the Padma Purana, he says so nicely that even though the Vedas declare that actually higher than the worship of the Devatas is the worship of Krishna or Vishnu, but above the worship of Lord Vishnu is the rendering of service and worship to the Vaishnavas. Bhishmadev is considered not just a Vaishnava, but in 6.3.20 of Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhishmadev is declared by Yamaraj himself to be one of the 12 Mahajans. So he's not just an ordinary devotee, he's not even a pure devotee, he's a pure devotee and a Mahajan. And Prabhupada says so many times that our movement is based on Anuvrajami. Anuvrajami means we have to follow. And who do we follow? We follow the Mahajans. So Bhishmadev is a very unique individual. And if you read the Shastras, you'll find that actually in his whole life, there was always the providence of his life moving in one direction, but the power of his devotional service actually changed it. Very often we speak of how powerful fate is, destiny is. And even though Bhishmadev's destiny was very powerful, and very often it was very dilapidating because it caused him a lot of difficulty, but we can see right till the end of his life how his devotional service actually impacted on his life. And I think that is something very important for all of us. Bhishmadev is considered to be one of the 8 Vasus, and his name in the previous life was known as Dew. And these 8 Vasus were very exalted and celestial beings. But what happened was they had stolen the sacred cow Nandini, and this cow belonged to Vasishta Rishi. And when he saw that the cow was being stolen, he cursed all of them to be born in this material world. And he actually cursed that Dew, who was behind this mostly, to continue staying. And the others would just touch this world and they would leave. So actually Bhishmadev was actually in a situation where he is also the product of his previous life. This is something we should learn. Sometimes when we come to devotional service, we are thinking, why so much problems there are? Why so much of impediments there are? Don't blame Krishna for it. Whatever arrow you shot in your past life is now finding the targets in the present life. So who do we blame? Do we blame the wife that you are complaining about? Do you blame the husband that you are complaining about? Do you blame the job that you're complaining about? Or do you blame the arrow that you shot yourself in your previous life? Or maybe in this life also. So we cannot run away from that point actually. So when the Vasus heard that Vasishta was very angry, then they placated Vasishta. And then he said that except for Dew, All of you will be born very quickly, touching this material world, and you will leave. And so this is how Bhishmadev came to this world. Shantanu was a great king, and you know from Mahabharata, he is descended from the great dynasty of Vivaswan. And one day, Shantanu was walking along the banks of Ganges, and he would do that frequently in between time when he saw a beautiful lady walking by. And when he presented himself to her and asked her who she was, she actually said that she was Mother Ganga herself. And somehow or another, Shantanu became very deeply attracted to her. And he proposed that she become his queen and come back to rule the kingdom. Mother Ganga said, "You are a very noble king, and I'm ready to do that. But I will do that subject to a few conditions. The first condition is, my dear king, don't interfere with whatever actions that I take. The actions may be agreeable or disagreeable, but don't interfere." Imagine, you're going to get married to someone and you tell that person, "You like me very much, that's fine. But after marriage, whatever I do, don't interfere." Right? Mataji, you're laughing. You'll have a field day, isn't it, if he says yes. Well, Ganga said that, and then she said one more very important thing. She said, "You must never chastise me with harsh words." This point is very important in Bhagavatam. Those who use harsh words to chastise others, it is stated in Bhagavatam that there is no need for them to be killed or destroyed by others, because Krishna, in the form of providence, will kill them himself. Harsh words are known in Bhagavad Gita as parusham. In the 16th chapter, 4th verse, it is considered to be parusham. It is one of the demonic qualities of a living being. So as devotees, we really have to be very careful how we speak. Sometimes in the mood of anger or envy or pride, our words can come out very harsh. And if they hurt those, right, who are dependent on us, then it is a grave consequence actually. So what Mother Ganga brought up actually was very interesting. And Shantanu readily agreed because he was mesmerized by Ganga. And they passed many years like that in joy. And she conceived 8 children. The 8 children are the 8 Vasus. And surprisingly, to the shock of King Shantanu, every time there was a child that was born, Ganga Devi would throw the child into the waters. And when she did that, she would say, "This is for your good, this is for your good." But the king remembered what he had agreed, and fearing that the marriage would end, he did not say anything. Of course, he was aghast at her conduct, and he did not chastise her because of fear that the relationship would end. But when the 8th child was born, see the power of providence. Vasishta had said, 7 of them will go very quickly. You, Bhishma, you have to stay in this world. When the 8th child was born, then Shantanu could not tolerate the killing anymore. And because he could not tolerate it, he spoke harshly to her, forbidding her to do so. Ganga then told her, "Alas, my dear king, I was doing this because of what had happened. These children's curse would be lifted by me doing this. It was not a cruel act. It was a benediction actually. But alas, I was hoping that even the last child would go through. But Krishna has other plans for this child. And therefore, this child will stay with you. I must leave, but I will take this child with me first. And I will train him to be very powerful. On his 16th birthday, walk by the Ganga and you will see him again." And so Shantanu lost both Ganga and his son. And this little boy lived so many years without father. So Bhishmadev's life was not easy. In Vedic tradition, to not have a father, have a mother, not have a father, this idea of divorce, there is no word divorce even in Sanskrit. In Sanskrit, the word divorce doesn't even have an equivalent. There is no such thing as divorce. The idea that we want to be separated from each other is demonic. It is considered demonic because we are the ones who are not able to manage responsibly what is happening and what has been given to us. So actually, it was a very painful situation for Bhishmadev because he grew up not having a father, and then from 16 years onwards, he would grow up not having a mother. He never had a full family, and it was not an easy thing to grow up with. One day, many years later, Shantanu walked by and he saw a boy. The boy was shooting arrows at the river in such speed that the arrows were forming literally a bridge across the river. And he was thinking, who is this boy? Who is this man who is able to do this? And then at that point of time, Mother Ganga appeared. And she said, my dear king, this is the boy whom you stopped me from killing. This is your son. And his name is Devavrat. So the boy Bhishmadev was actually known as Devavrat. And he was given to Shantanu and Mother Ganga left. So the next years of his life, he was living without a mother. Devavrat never had the luxury of a complete family. He never grew up in a happy environment because all the years when he was with his mother, he was thinking, who is my father? Then after being with his father, he had lost his mother. You see? But the important thing here is, even while he was growing up in the manhood, he also faced challenges. Devavrat grew up to be a very talented and powerful warrior, Mahabharata tells us, and he was a great devotee at heart. And he came to understand that his father, Shantanu, was actually feeling very lonely because he was pining for the mother. And he felt that there was no companionship for his father. So he grew close to his father and he could understand that. One day, 4 years after that, Shantanu was walking along the banks of the Ganges. Then he went through a fishing village and suddenly he saw the beautiful Satyavati. And Satyavati actually was a fisherman's daughter. But Mahabharata tells us she was born through the agency of Parashara Muni. And that is why, even though she came from a fish-smelling family, if you've gone to these fish villages, for example, if you've been to Somnath, you would have realized, right, the moment we hit Somnath, there was just fish everywhere. It was like fish was flying in the air. The smell is too much. But Satyavati had a boon, that though she was born to a father who was a fisherman, because of Parashara Muni's influence, she would always smell very fragrant. So when Shantanu was walking by a house, he thought, everywhere I'm smelling fishy smell. How come this house has the best of the fragrances? And that is where he saw Satyavati. So when he saw Satyavati, immediately he thought, this is the girl who should give me companionship for the rest of my life. He went to the father and he said, can I take her? When the father knew this was Shantanu and the father knew that he already had a son, Devavrat, father was very smart. The father said, I will allow you to marry my daughter, but there is a dreaded condition actually. Whatever son born of Satyavati must become the next king of the world, and no one else can become his successor. In other words, even after that child, the child's child must succeed, and the bloodline cannot be broken. Shantanu was devastated. Why? Because Devavrat was there. Devavrat, of course, will become the heir apparent, and he would end up actually having a family of his own. He was thinking, how can I deny my firstborn the right to the lineage? But at the same time, he was thinking to himself, my senses are so much in turmoil that I want to enjoy with Satyavati also. This is a challenge sometimes we face in the world. We want to do the right thing sastrically, but Maya is so powerful that we are illusioned to perform something for the sake of our senses. So he was devastated. And when he came back, he was a changed man. Till then, he was always with Devavrat. And he was quite happy, quite perky. But then suddenly, Devavrat noticed the change in his father. And he started inquiring, Father, what's wrong with you? And Shantanu gave a famous cryptic reply. It's in the Mahabharata. The cryptic reply is very interesting. My dear son, I'm thinking of the instability of human life. Actually, he's thinking of Satyavati. If sudden death were to overcome you, I would be without a son. You are like 100 sons to me, and I do not desire to marry me. But he couldn't wait to get married to her. I only desire our dynasty be perpetuated. The wise say that he who has one son has no son at all, meaning I need more sons. It is possible you will be slain in the battle. And if that happens, what will be the state of the dynasty? These thoughts, my dear son, are making me unhappy. In a lecture on this, my Guru Maharaj said, in this material world, when someone tells you they got a headache, you should look more closely and you'll find out actually it is a stomach ache. They will start by saying it is a headache, but upon closer inspection, you will realize there is a stomach ache. There is something beyond what they are saying. Have you noticed this? Sometimes people come with one sentence, but actually behind there's a lot of things they want to ask, but they haven't said it yet, you see. It's coming, it's coming. Now, Devavrat was very intelligent. From that one cryptic reply, he came to understand. Father must have found a girl. And he must be thinking what is going to happen, because something must have happened there. So Devavrat found out through the minister who was very close with father what had happened. Now this is an important point. Even though Devavrat could have decided to hell with whatever father wants, my bloodline is important, I must secure the kingdom for myself. That's the least I can do for myself. But Bhishmadev, Devavrat, is a devotee. And because he was a devotee, he acted based on devotional principles. So at that point of time, before he could do anything else, he thought to himself, what is more important? The more important thing is for me to be able to understand what Krishna wants of me in this life. That is why we should accept our place in life. That is the start of self-satisfaction. Santushtaha is very, very important. Wherever we are, we should accept this is my lot. We may try to fight it, but if the providence is so strong it cannot change, then instead of wasting time there, better we increase our devotional service. How much to fight against the tide, which is Krishna? So then Devavrat decided, let me do one thing. I like this picture. It's a very old picture. It's very traditional. You can see Bhishmadev at that point with his hair down, as Devavrat, and he's gone to see the fisherman. So Devavrat approached Satyavati's father, and he told him, listen, I vow to renounce my right to the throne and all the pleasures, prosperity and wealth of a king. I'm ready to do that. Satyavati's father heard and said, good, but not satisfied. Then Devavrat said, why? Then he said, well, you may decide to renounce, but what about anything else? What happens if you decide not to, but you have children, the children decide, no, we want to lay a stake to the kingdom, then what's going to happen? Right? That's how kingdoms fall, isn't it? So then Devavrat took a second vow. His first vow was, he will remain, that he will not take the kingdom, he will renounce it. But now he took a deeper and more stronger vow, and he vowed to renounce sense enjoyment, to become celibate for the rest of his life, and never to look back on it. Bhagavatam and Mahabharata tells us when he took that vow, from the air, flowers fell as the devatas looked at him. Because then they said, he is Bhishma. Bhishma means one who takes a terrible vow. Right? Devavrat already is very powerful. Vrata means, to take on a vrata, an austerity, a penance. And Deva means he's celestial. But Bhishma is more deeper even. One who has taken a vow and one who is determined to not break the vow. And this is the mood of Bhishmadev. This is the mood of a devotee. And so he did this for the love of his father and for the continuation of his father's progeny and kingdom. And in doing so, see Bhishmadev's character. He actually placed his duty and his dharma above all else. Vedic living is nothing without Sanatana Dharma. And the moment we understand that we all have a dharma and we must play our part, then we can become Krishna conscious. We must understand that above all dharmas, savai pumsam paro dharmo is yator bhaktir adoksaje. So he decided, let me render my devotional service to Krishna by playing my part as a son to my father. And therefore he sacrificed an entire kingdom. Think about it. He sacrificed an entire bloodline and lineage, and he became Bhishma. Now, Shantanu, when he heard this, he was very pleased by Bhishma, and he gave him one benediction that you all will enact, I'm sure. The benediction that he will be able to experience and meet death only when he wishes. Only when he wishes. Prabhu, will Bhishmadev be on a bed of arrows here? Oh, I look forward to that. Okay. I'm looking forward to that. This is an important verse here. from Bhagavad Gita that we should remember when we think of Bhishmadev. Ragadvesha vimuktaischu, Vishayan indriyais charan, Atma vashay videyatma, prasadam adhigacchati. This is what Bhishmadev actually did. He became free of attachment and aversion. The problem with us normally is we detach ourselves from something by hating that or becoming averse to that. That's how we renounce. I want to renounce a materialist because I'm averse to him. But actually that is not the way to do it. We renounce something, but we don't hate it. Very often we get caught up in that idea. Suddenly we renounce tea and coffee. Everybody who takes tea and coffee, we are averse to them. That is not actually correct, because we must become free from aversion also, not just attachment. Supposing you say, I'm not attached to my wife, but I'm averse to her. That is wrong. That is wrong. If you're not attached to your wife because you and your wife are detached in the sense that you put Krishna in the center, then you should not be averse to each other. You see the point? So Bhishmadev, he perfected this because he was able to control his senses. You know how we know this? Because he never hated Shantanu after he did that. He did not. When he went back to Shantanu, he was as loving to his father, and he welcomed Satyavati as his mother. He didn't walk away and say, I'm very angry, I'm very bitter. He didn't do that. At the same time, he could control his senses with the regulative principles of freedom. And that's why Bhishmadev is Mahajan, because in that way, he obtained complete mercy of the Lord. This is a very important point. Now, when Bhishmadev became such a renunciate, Bhagavatam and Mahabharata tells us he maintained that vow of renunciation. Even though he could easily have broken it. In those days, if you were a powerful king, you may not have taken a wife, but you could have taken hundreds of mistresses. It was very easy to break the vow of celibacy. All you needed to do was one woman needed to come to a king and say, you must satisfy me. And it becomes the role of the king to satisfy her. But Bhishmadev did not break his vow on account of such an excuse. So he protected Satyavati. Satyavati had two children, Vichitravirya, and the elder son was Chitrangada. Now Chitrangada was actually very powerful and he was very capable, but he was killed in a battle. So then there was only Vichitravirya left. Vichitravirya was very sickly. He was a sickly child. And eventually, even though he had to be installed as a small boy and king, and though Bhishmadev was there as the regent, taking care of everything, eventually Bhishmadev protected him like a father. Imagine, he could easily have taken advantage of this situation and said, oh, Chitrangada is dead, Vichitravirya is weak, I'm sorry Satyavati, I'm sorry my father, I have to take over because you're too old. He could have done that, but he didn't do that. He tried his best to arrange for military training, education. He assured Satyavati that his son would never be in danger, her son would never be in danger of being usurped. But then, to go even further, Bhishmadev decided the progeny must continue. So Vichitravirya was too weak to fight for princesses. In those days, Kshatriyas, you go for Swayamvar or you go and kidnap a queen. That's how they did it, right? Just like Krishna kidnapped Rukmini, you're supposed to kidnap. Today, if you kidnap, 10 years, by the way. But in those days, it was considered glorious, actually. So Vichitravirya could not do that. And he heard that the king of Kasi, Kasi Raja, it was the tradition, actually, that Kasi Raja would always give his daughters to the kings of the Kuru dynasty. There was some arrangement amongst them. But that year, Kasi Raja held a Swayamvar. Because Kasi Raja was thinking, who is going to marry Vichitravirya? Such a weak man, he won't even last a year, he'll probably die. He won't be able to give children to my daughters. He had 3 daughters, Amba, Ambika and Ambalika. And all 3 were very powerful Kshatriya, beautiful princesses. So he arranged Swayamvar. And then when he arranged the Swayamvar, Bhishmadev decided, let me go and instead of being one of the people in Swayamvar, because I'm not getting married, I will kidnap these little girls because they were very young to him, and I will bring them back and get them married to Vichitravirya. So he fought the entire king of Kasi's battle, And if you read Mahabharata, he did that almost single-handedly. And he brought all three of them back and said, Vichitravirya, get married now. Amba came to him, and Amba was very upset. Amba told him, I have something to tell you that I did not tell you. I am actually in love with the king of Salva. And actually he is also in love with me. And we plan to get married. But you came and you stole me, and now I am here. I have no heart for Vichitravirya. Please let me go and let me go back. Bhishmadev actually said, please go. If you had told me earlier, I would not have brought you here. He was such a gentleman. But the problem is, when she went back to the king said, you have already been touched by another. You have been already conquered by another. It will be an insult to me if you come back to me. In those days, these considerations were very important. And so Amba came back and said, I can't get married there. And Vichitravirya is not someone I can get married to. You marry me. Now Bhishmadev was stuck because he had taken a vow. And he told her, I cannot marry you, Mata, even if I wanted to, because I've taken a vow. She said, break it, because what will happen to my life? And he said, no, I cannot, because if I do, then the entire kingdom will be plunged into chaos. So actually Amba, rejected and humiliated, became very upset. And she performed severe austerities. And in the austerities, right, she went to obtain assistance from Lord Parashuram himself. And Parashuram is one of the incarnations of the Lord that lives forever, right? He's in so many episodes. And here, Parashuram went to Hastinapur and he said, listen, Bhishma, let's settle this matter. Just get married to her. Bhishma said, I can't, otherwise I would have done it. And so Parashuram said, all right, then let us fight. Now, Bhishmadev's preceptor, the one who trained him in warfare, was actually Parashuram. But what to do? They had to fight. And a great battle ensued. Is the battle there, Prabhu? I'm not sure. No, right? Okay. It'll become too long, I think. Parashuram and Bhishmadev fought. They fought for 24 days. Neither warrior was able to defeat the other. And Bhishmadev was about to release a very unique and powerful weapon when Narada came and said, don't do that. He is after all your guru. You cannot humiliate him. And Bhishmadev obeyed Narada. Do you notice one thing about Bhishmadev? Even though he was very powerful, he was also powerfully humble. He never lost his humility. He was always ready to hear his superiors. It's very difficult, when you have people of that stature, because everyone's hearing them. Who are they hearing? But Bhishmadev was always ready to hear. And after a long and tense standoff, Bhishmadev fell at the lotus feet of Parashuram and worshipped him. And the battle ended. Parashuram went back to Amba and said, I'm sorry, I cannot defeat Bhishmadev. Amba thought, this is a bad time for me. Even Parashuram cannot help me. So then she decided, let me worship Lord Shiva. And she worshipped Lord Shiva. And when Lord Shiva did not turn up, she built a pyre and she put herself in there. And then Lord Shiva came and said, don't do that. Tell me what you want. I want to kill Bhishmadev. And he said, Bhishmadev cannot be killed. Not by you, but he can only be killed by one who would not be a man, but would also be a woman. And so Amba was thinking, but I am a woman. And then Lord Shiva said, if you want this boom to happen, then in your next life, you will return as a man and a woman. And Amba would come back as Shikanti. That is what she did. And so he told her, be calm and be patient. And at the end of your life, you will take on the birth. But she could not wait. She had built the pyre already, right? She just built the fire and she jumped in and she self-combusted herself. All the while thinking, let me come back and let me kill Bhishmadev. What did Bhishmadev deserve? What did he do to deserve so much hatred? When you think of what he did, he was just trying his best to do what he wants. But this is the material world, you see. Sometimes we try our best to be well-wishers, but it doesn't mean that it will be all right. So I think I went through that part. Yes. Vichitravirya, true to form, died young. And he died of tuberculosis. And suddenly, the whole kingdom was plunged into misery. The dynasty was bereft of a heir. Satyavati approached Bhishma and told him, break your vow and bring a heir to the throne. Can you imagine? The fisherman's daughter herself said, if I was Bhishma, I would have thought, why not? After all, the person who took the vow is releasing me from the vow. But he did not. He said, no, mother, I will not do that. And this is what he says. This is a beautiful translation from Mahabharata. I had taken a vow of lifelong celibacy. I may have to renounce kingship of the three worlds, kingdom of heaven, and anything greater that exists, but this vow I will never renounce. The earth may lose its scent, water may lose its moisture, the sun may lose its glory, fire and heat, the moon may lose its cooling rays, or Indra may lose his prowess, but I will not renounce this vow. Actually, it's a very dramatic statement to make. Yeah, very drama-worthy actually. Very powerful statement, and it shows you that how important Bhishmadev kept to his vow. And this principle is very important. We have taken vows before our spiritual masters. We have taken vows before Krishna to chant, to read. Maybe some of us are vowing 4 rounds, maybe 16 rounds. But whatever vow we have taken, we must take it seriously. It cannot be that we take a vow today and tomorrow we change. That is not going to please Krishna. This pleased Krishna very much. So he did not sway from the path of virtue and morality. So what did he do then? He trained. He cared for the 3 sons of Ambika and Ambalika, because there were the 3 sons. There was Dhritarashtra, there was Pandu and Vidura. He did not take over the kingdom. He trained them. Bhishma then trained, guided and gave shelter to the children who came from there, the Kauravas and the Pandavas. Bhishma became so powerful in the world, he could have usurped the throne any time for himself. But because he had no taste for material wealth, acquisitions or fame, he never failed to discharge his duties. And now comes the Mahabharata war. Duty compelled Bhishmadev to actually fight on the side of the Kauravas. It was duty. We must remember that. And duty is such an important concept. But just because Bhishmadev fought on the side of the Kauravas does not mean that he was not a devotee. He was very much a devotee. He understood that for leading the Kaurava army as the grandsire and the chief general, Bhishmadev knew that death would come to him. But it would come to him on the battlefield. And his victory would be the victory to take darshan of Krishna. And his victory would be that the Pandavas would be victorious. This is very important. So Bhishmadev did not take this situation as a curse. As a Mahajan, he took this delicate, complicated situation as a blessing. That's what he did. And this is so nice point that is found in Bhagavatam. Oh my Lord, you are so kind that you have granted me an audience of your transcendental form by being on the opposite side of you. It does not now matter to me if I am defeated or victorious in this battle, for by taking your darshan, I am now fully satisfied. Do with me as you please, my Lord. What a beautiful prayer. This was the prayer that Bhishmadev took into the battle of Kurukshetra. This, I'm sure, will be a main highlight of the drama, because the point that is here, Krishna is known as Ratangapani, one of the great names of Krishna. And in 1.3.37 or 38 of Bhagavatam, this particular shloka is given there. And it mentions Krishna as Ratangapani. On the 3rd day of the battle, this beautiful pastime happened. And in this pastime, this is the great pastime where Bhishmadev had been pushed by Duryodhan, because Duryodhan insulted Bhishmadev and poked him so much to say that you're always biased. And Bhishmadev said, tomorrow I will fight in such a way that Arjuna will be defeated. And he told him, keep these arrows. He told Duryodhan, keep these arrows for me and keep them safely. Tomorrow I will claim them. Now when Krishna knew about it, because Krishna knows everything about it, Krishna sent Arjun to go and see Duryodhan. Was it Arjun or Yudhishthir? Yudhishthir, right? It was Yudhishthir. So Yudhishthir Maharaj went, and he went to see Duryodhan. And of course you all know that even though Duryodhan may be Kaurava and he may be very difficult, but at least he had a sacred code of the Kshatriya, that if someone asked for something, he would give it. And therefore, the 5 arrows were procured in this manner. When Bhishmadev came to find out, he realized who was behind it. Who's behind everything anyway? It's Krishna, isn't it? And so he took another vow. He said the next day, not only will Arjuna be defeated, but factually speaking, whatever vow that Krishna took of not interfering in the battle, he will have to break it. What a powerful point. And so you can see there's all these cross promises and cross vows, and who wants to break whose vow. It's all there actually. It makes for compelling study actually. And on that day of the battle, Bhishmadev was relentless. If you read about it, right, he was just relentless in breaking all the phalanxes. He was just shooting arrow upon arrow unceasingly at Arjuna. And Krishna was the charioteer. And Krishna was taking a heavy load on himself also. And it became so difficult at one point that Krishna realized that there was no choice but for him to come down from the chariot, which he did, with his hair disheveled and his upper cloth and upper garment swung away. And he took the chariot wheel and he came, and the chariot wheel became like Sudarshan Chakra. And he came running towards Bhishmadev. And as he did that in great transcendental anger, what did Bhishmadev do? Bhishmadev stood there. You can see him there standing like a hero. And at that point of time, the Lord was prepared to break his vow of not fighting as he rushed towards Bhishmadev to kill him. And at that point of time, Bhishmadev remembers this beautiful pastime. Swanigamam apahaya mat pratiknyam ritam adikartum avaplutoratastaha Dhritarthacharano vyayachalagur haririvahantum ibham gato tariya. Fulfilling my vow and sacrificing his own promise, he got down from the chariot, took up its wheel and ran towards me hurriedly, just like a lion goes to kill an elephant. He even dropped his outer garment on the way. Bhishmadev, this is from the lenses of Bhishmadev. In other words, Bhishmadev was not angry in the heat of the battle, neither was he upset. What is he saying? He's saying, look at the greatness of Krishna. Krishna broke his vow to fulfill my vow. He sacrificed his own promise just to fulfill my promise. And in doing so, Krishna protected Bhishmadev and he protected Arjuna. Amazing. And Arjuna fell at the lotus feet of Krishna. And at that point of time, the day ended. The battle ended. Perfect timing. I'm sure Krishna arranged that also, right? He didn't do it at mid-battle, then we would have a problem. He ended this situation right at the right time. But the Ratangapane pastime of Krishna is considered to be one of the sweetest pastime with Bhishmadev, because it shows us that sometimes the Lord may appear as if he's transcendently upset or angry, but the devotee never flinches in his faith in the Lord. Very, very important. Sometimes we may realize that Krishna may be upset with us, but we should never think that Krishna doesn't love us. And we should not lose our faith in Krishna. In fact, we should increase our faith in Krishna. This is a very, very important, very deep point to the pastime that we must remember. Bhishmadev and the Pandavas, right, were fighting and nobody could defeat Bhishmadev. And now on the 9th day of the war, the Pandavas and Krishna, they approached Bhishmadev and they did something quite interesting. Bhishmadev first of all welcomed them with so much love, and he told them, request of me anything and I will give it to you. And they decided to ask him this: how do we kill you? How will you be defeated? We have heard that it is impossible to defeat you. And at that point of time, Bhishmadev did not become angry. He did not become upset. Truly without attachment and without aversion, he advised them. He said that you should, Yudhishthir, he told him, Yudhishthir, you should without delay kill me the next day, 10th day, because you will never be able to win the war until I am slain. That much is clear. If Bhishmadev continued to 18th day, right, the Mahabharata would not have ended there. He was that powerful. And Bhishmadev even advised him to kill him when he puts aside his weapon. Because he said, the only way to kill me is when my weapons are put aside. And Arjuna said, but grandsire, you will never put aside your weapon on the battle. So how will we create a situation where you can put aside your weapon? And Bhishmadev smiled and said, I am duty bound as a Kshatriya to put aside my weapon when a woman appears in front of me. Because by Kshatriya code, I cannot take up weapons against a lady. So then the super soul in Arjuna ignited an idea, because Shikhandi is there. And we know from Mahabharata that Shikhandi's background was very interesting, isn't it? Both man and woman, neither man and woman. It is very, very interesting actually. And so the Pandavas fell at the lotus feet of Bhishmadev, and they left that night on the 9th day. Who orchestrates his own death? One who is not attached to this world, and one who is not averse, and one who truly sees the hand of Krishna in all these matters. This is the greatness of Bhishmadev. And therefore, in the Mahabharata war on the 10th day, Shikhandi was used as a decoy. Shikhandi was in front. And as he was in front, Arjuna and Krishna on the chariot were behind. And the moment Shikhandi came in front and threatened, Bhishma saw Shikhandi and he thought, I cannot be taking up arms against such a person. And therefore he put down his arms. And when he put down his arms, it is stated, look at the actual time. On the sunrise and start of the battle on the 10th day, the Pandavas placed Shikhandi at the head of their battle. Bhishma, in preparation for his passing, placed himself at the head of the Kaurava army. He was ready. He knew it was coming. Even though Shikhandi assaulted Bhishma with an array of weapons, the grandsire did not return any weapon. But he destroyed all the supporting troops of Shikhandi, like a forest fire consumes trees. At the right time, Bhishma turned to Yudhishthir and he signaled him that my time is coming. Yudhishthir ordered Arjuna and Shikhandi release deadly arrows at Bhishma. Bhishma then reflected that this was the time, and he remembered his father Shantanu. Remember what Shantanu said? You can choose your time. And Bhishmadev thought, let me choose my time now. But choosing time requires a bit of expert precision, because the Devas also confirmed at the same time, at that point as they witnessed the battle, O Bhishma, your departure from this world is close at hand. Withdraw your heart from the battle. And Bhishmadev, whose heart has always been with Krishna, he began withdrawing his senses even as he stood in front of Shikhandi and Arjuna. And in the heat of the war, Mahabharata tells us, fragrant and auspicious breeze filled with water particles began to blow in all directions. And Bhishmadev felt enlivened. Showers of flowers fell on him as everyone realized what was going to happen. Arjuna made one final push and he released hundreds of arrows that pierced Bhishma in every part of his body, not even leaving a 2-finger breadth of space. Imagine. But the grandsire, as he fell from his chariot, he had the desire that only the arrow of Arjuna, because Shikhandi's arrows had also been strewn, he deliberated at that point of time that when the arrow of Arjuna touches my heart, at that point I will fall. And true enough, when he felt the arrow of Arjuna amongst all other arrows, he then fell from the chariot, and the hearts of the Kauravas and the Pandavas fell with him. Knowing now that the sun was not very auspicious, that cause was not there, it was the opposite of Uttarayan, he did not leave his body, but he lay on the bed of arrows, and he looked very majestic and effulgent. I hope Bhishmadev looks majestic and effulgent on the stage. And there you are, look at him, how wonderful he looked. Both the armies stopped. They approached Bhishma with reverence and they bowed before him. Bhishmadev blessed the army of the Pandavas, but he lamented the foolishness of Duryodhana. So even then, Bhishmadev was so powerful. He understood what was happening. And so the war continued. It continued but Bhishmadev remained as witness. Now Bhishmadev, to end, gave very wonderful advice to Yudhishthira Maharaj, because after the war they came to see him. And he said, Aho anyayam, aho kastam. And he said, what terrible suffering and what terrible injustices you good souls suffer just because you are sons of religion personified. You did not deserve to remain alive, but you were protected by three things: Brahmanas, God, and religion. Actually, the same thing that he told them actually applied to him his whole life. Actually, so much injustices he had to suffer, isn't it true? So much difficulties he had to go through also. And yet, Bhagavatam tells us he never wavered. He never wavered because he was protected by Krishna, he was protected by his dharma, and he was always protected by his behavior, which is very important. And so at the end, he tells Arjuna and the Pandavas that no one can know the plan of Krishna. But if we don't know the plan of Krishna, then whatever happens is the plan of Krishna. Tasmad idam daivam tantram vyavasa rishabhaha. That's 19:17. So now he says, take care of these subjects and go on to rule the kingdom, because they are helpless. And I've left one Bhishmadev's prayer here for all of us to remember. It's a beautiful verse. Iti mati rupa kalpita vritishna bhagavati sarvata pungave vibhumni swasukham upagate kvachid vihartum prakritim upeyushiyat bhava pravaha. Let me now invest my thinking, my feeling and willing, which were for so long engaged in different subjects and occupational duties. Now let my thinking, my feeling and my willing be invested in the lotus feet of Krishna. Why? Because Krishna is always self-satisfied and he's always enjoying his transcendental pleasures. This is the mood of Bhishmadev. So we may be doing so many things in this material world, but the important thing for us to know is that we should always invest whatever we have at the lotus feet of Bhishmadev. I just want to end by saying a few things here. In a lecture, Srila Prabhupada said very nicely this point. Bhajana kara, sadhana kara, murte janle hoy. Whatever bhajana and sadhana that we have performed throughout our life will be tested at the time of death. It will be tested at the time of death. You can cheat Krishna and look like you're having a good life, behave like a devotee, but at the point of death, your devotional service will be tested. And we can see Bhishmadev experienced so many reversals in life, so much painful sacrifices he bore, so many things he gave up, so much insults he had to endure, but he never failed in his devotional service, never failed in his duty. Whatever he was destined to enjoy or suffer, he accepted as a pure devotee. And because he was always keeping his vow, he gained the respect of thousands and thousands of people. And though he was filled with the complexity and the politics of Mahabharata, his mind, his heart was always lofty. It was never stuck in the mud. Like a lotus flower grows in a muddy swamp, Bhishmadev was like that lotus flower. The lotus flower is very pure, but it grows in mud actually. And whatever water that touches the lotus flower, because it is waterproof, that drop of water must go away. It must drop off. And that's how Bhishmadev lived. And because of that, he was free of anxiety and free of all tribulations. Tatte nukampam sushamikshamano bunjana evadma kritam vipakam ridvagvapurbir vidadan namaste jivetayo mukti padesa dayabha. This shloka is very, very reminiscent of Bhishmadev. Because here the devotee prays to Bhishmadev. He prays to Krishna. And his prayer is that whoever waits earnestly for the Lord's mercy, enduring all the difficulties of life, but always having faith that Krishna will save him. And instead of wasting his time, Hrit Vagvapurbir, he puts his heart, his mind, his soul into increasing his devotional service. That is a true devotee. And for that devotee, he becomes the rightful heir to the kingdom of God. So what can we learn from Bhishmadev? Devotional service is the highest activity we can perform. Devotional service to the Lord in all challenging situations must continue, and Krishna will protect us. Destiny may be very powerful, but the Lord's shelter will always prevail. We have to be in this world, but we don't have to be of this world. And purity of habits, purity of word, deed and thought, that is the force that will protect us in this material world. Jai Bhishmadev Mahajan ki. I'll share this slide, Prabhu, if you think it would be useful for you all. Keep it with you. As you're doing this wonderful drama, please, every day, remember, this is not just a drama. This is an amazing opportunity for you to actually associate with Bhishmadev. That means you must do the best drama you can do. That means you must be punctual for rehearsals. That means whatever is requested of you, you have to do. It is a dichotomy of views if you say, I really am thinking of Bhishmadev, but you come late for everything. Or you don't turn up, or you don't cooperate, or you're slow to do something. All the enthusiasm that you're putting in this drama must manifest in your actions if you really love Bhishmadev. Gopalak Prabhu, is that all right?
I think the whole idea was to set all those who are participating in the drama, to set them in the right mood, to understand this character of Bhishmadev.
Yes.
Because he is Maharaja.
Yes.
But he's also one of the most misunderstood characters.
Exactly.
So we wanted to understand the character, and Prabhu, you have very nicely described it.
You kept me engaged, so it was good. It was good. So keep this, take it back with you. I think it was a wonderful point for Gopalak Prabhu to do this. It means you take the drama very seriously. It is Krishna conscious. May Bhishmadev bless all of you with pure devotional service. Thank you very much, and I wish you all the best. Hare Krishna.